Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel72 video, and this is a Patreon requested video here today. It's going to be out on the Patreon, early release, and it was a video in which I wasn't planning on doing, but is actually a really intriguing contest, and that is my prediction for the Jamaine Ortiz versus Steve Claggett fight. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and feel free to join the Patreon. Of course, if you have any sort of combat sporting related content you would like to see, I mean, of course, this video wouldn't have existed if somebody hadn't requested it, and you would like to get your own content on the channel, then you know where to go. The link will be in the description. I really appreciate all the support I've had so far with it. And so yeah, let's get straight into this video. So again, like I say, this is a good, interesting, intriguing contest for the WBA Continental USA Super Lightweight title. And, this is intriguing because I think it's quite a contrast of styles. Of course, Jamaine Ortiz is somebody who has fought at a very high level. They both, of course, alongside Steve Claggett, have that mutual opponent in Teofimo Lopez. Ortiz has also fought Lomachenko and had a defeat as well, but Steve Claggett's also fought his own tough set of fighters and had a few defeats on his record, but again had a couple good defeats as well. Maybe arguably had some better wins than that of what Jamaine Ortiz has had in his career. He beat a Miguel Medueno, just to list a name for Steve Claggett, but at the same time, Jaime Ortiz also has gone on to beat the likes of Jamel Herring as well. So again, there's a debate there of who was better at that point in their careers. This is a fight which is on a very stacked card. It's on a Most Valuable Promotions Fight Night show full of great names, headlined by Yankee Rivera, and this is the co-main event. I mean, originally I didn't suspect that Ortiz would fight on a Most Valuable Promotion show. I thought that he was signed to Matchroom, but obviously I was wrong. I mean, he had 2 wins last time since last being out against, of course, Teofimo Lopez, and in that time with them 2 wins, his last one was on a Matchroom show, and that was via unanimous decision, low down on a card, against an opponent who was realistically not that skilled, in my opinion. I don't really think was that good of an opponent, and the fact that he was so low down on a card which was not a big card in Austin Williams versus Patrice Volney, not a big kind of name show at all. Obviously Edgar Berlanga also featured on that card, and he's gone on to fight big events since then, but again, that was just a bit of an interesting one just to see him fluttering around. Again, I thought that maybe he would have actually been signed to Matchroom, and I think that really would have benefited his career. And Matchroom have got a good selection of super lightweights, and I thought, again, to add something like Jamaine Ortiz would have been a good idea. But again, nonetheless, that hasn't seemingly happened, and I don't think that either of these fighters are actually signed to anybody in particular at the moment, and maybe they are kind of fighting for their contract at the moment. And obviously, like I said, they both have that Teofimo Lopez fight in common, with both ending in unanimous decision. Obviously, if you go and watch both fights, they both played out in very different ways. I mean, Ortiz arguably got the most amount of kind of disrespect and hate sent towards him online after the fight, as he was basically just said that he was running the entire fight and not creating a fan-friendly style. People were slating that fight, and in general, I don't think fans were excited to see him back in the ring. And at the end of the day, that is what promoters are going to be looking at as a very important factor. They're going to be, looking at, of course, Ortiz has got a good record, and again, like I say, he's gotten a couple of good wins on his record. But if he is going to be making that kind of next step on to sign with a big promoter and really get pushed again to get another chance at a world title, they're really going to have to see something which is going to, wow them, I think, in this fight. Because, again, I just don't feel like there is that desire to sign him at the moment because of what happened in that Teofimo Lopez fight, where he didn't fight badly, but he just didn't really try to go out there and entertain the fans enough of what, we we would have wanted, and I'm sure, like I say, promoters would have wanted. Whereas Claglett's loss seemed to possibly kind of raise his stock a bit at the same time. Yes, he was hurt in the fight, and I don't believe Ortiz was hurt as badly as what Claggett was, but he was continuously coming forwards, and everybody was expecting him to just get absolutely kind of walked through and stopped by Lopez, including myself. But I feel like there was that higher expectation of Ortiz to do better than that of Claggett, whereas Claggett was still able to get that same unanimous decision defeat. He went all around still, and he was able to make it tough in certain points for Lopez. And again, like I say, that's where his stock has seemingly kind of risen. I mean, he did return back to winning ways, and he is coming off a win end of last year, beating Eduardo Estella by a TKO in his home country of Canada. It seems like he was kind of waiting around to see if if he was going to get that kind of big shot. And he is able to keep himself in big fights, even though he has shortly had a defeat, and he kind of always does enough to just stay around on the world scene. You would argue that he is a proper kind of gatekeeper to the world level, but I'm sure that he's going to be wanting to still go out there and put on a good entertaining fight, and even perhaps push again for another title shot if possible. I mean, it was a bit of a shock that he was gifted the world title fight against Teofimo Lopez before, and yes, perhaps that was Teofimo Lopez in both the Ortiz fight and the Claggett fight, which seemed a bit lackluster. Again, with Teofimo Lopez, you don't always know what you're going to get. He does sometimes, if he doesn't get himself excited and up for the fight enough, he doesn't always put on the best of performances, and it seemed like there was a few things going on behind the scenes after the Josh Taylor fight where he was able to win well, but again a few things happened kind of out of boxing, and seemingly that maybe affected his fights against Ortiz and Claggett. So maybe that's why he didn't look the best in both of these fights, and maybe that's why Claggett was able to have some level of success. But nonetheless, the result, I mean, for Claggett has still aged well, due to the fact that he has gone on to go and beat Barboza since. To speak about both fighters a bit more individually, Claggett, as a fighter, he is somebody who doesn't really give you a lot of space. He's definitely very physical, and he's a come forward fighter. He always is coming forwards, and again, he really was able to just continuously walk you down and just follow you and stalk you, and that's what he was able to do to Teofimo Lopez throughout the entirety of their fight. He forces you back, and again, he was able to do that to Lopez well, and he's aggressive with a nice tight guard. Again, all things in which we didn't have in that fight with Ortiz and Lopez, but we had that with Claggett, and he was always there in front of you. He didn't get discouraged at any point. He really showcased that he has heart, and like I say, he was hurt in that fight, and it very easily could have been a fight which he could have even taken a knee and really just bowed out of it and just took the paycheck and kind of left. But inevitably, like I say, he really wanted to try and go out there and put on a good showcase, because I think at the end of the day, he does know, yes, maybe he is a bit of a gatekeeper, but he still has that chance and that possibility. And this was such a huge fight for him to get a world title, and he wasn't going to just run away. He was going to try and be there in front of him to try and make it a competitive fight, unlike what Ortiz did. He punches you around the guard well, and he catches you coming in, and again, like I say, he's just a good physical threat who's always in front of you, letting his hands go, and he was, like I say, having success punching around that guard of Lopez. Negatives about him, I think he didn't deal with hand speed or combinations well at all. I think he has, you know, not the best footwork, and it can look a bit off balance as well, and inevitably all them things put together means he's just not really got much of a defence. He does not really cut off the ring the best. I think he has perhaps a bit more power, maybe, than that of what we've seen from Ortiz so far, but He, like I say, his defense is just quite poor. He doesn't really move his head. He doesn't really catch and throw, which I think perhaps could cause him to have more success. But I just think, like I say, he isn't reactive, agile, or fast. So again, all them things mean that he hasn't really got the best of timing, and he's not able to punish that well. And again, like I say, he doesn't really utilize his power that well. He's quite flat-footed. He's very flat-footed. He can be moved with punches, and he does rely too heavily on his offense. And to speak about Ortiz as a fighter, he's got good speed. Again, that's something which definitely could cause Claggett problems, and that has been showcased to do so. He circles off well, and he showcased fast feet. And again, that is something in which I do often critique a lot of fighters for not showcasing. Just the general thing of actually circling off the ropes. If you are going to be somebody who is going to willingly, be on the back foot, then you have to be able to circle off the ropes well. He is a tricky southpaw, and he does wait for his moments. He's got an in and out type style, which isn't really the easiest to time. So again, that's what makes him a bit tricky in that aspect. He's got good straight shots, and he's got, like I say, that good fast hand movement with the stamina. Of course, it's not easy to be moving around continuously for a long fight, and it will frustrate opponents, and he has that athleticism as well. He doesn't allow you to time shots because, like I say, he's just difficult to land on, and when he follows off his jab and lets his hands go, again, that's where he has bit more of success. It seems like he was in his last fight, which, like I say, was a step down in opposition, trying to use his ego a bit more and trying to plant his feet and trying to go toe to toe, and not just, he was accepting the back foot a bit, but in the later rounds he was trying to go toe to toe, which, definitely made him get caught more and inevitably kind of led to him being in a bit more of a war. But he was still able to have that more success. It did look a bit better, so it seems like he is trying to form into a bit more of an offensive style. It's just if he can make it work for him. And negatives about him, I think he's not really planting his feet at the best of moments, and he can be lunging in a bit too much at times. He can, like I say, come in with the in and out type style, but he can jump a bit too far out, which means he's not able to get his timing down, which is, I think, a bit of a problem. And I do feel like he does struggle finding range as well. He has a bit of a low weak guard. He can dip down when he's trying to move, or he can go and backwards and put his chin in the air, and either way, if he's doing that, he will probably get caught. He doesn't always make his jab have the best of success. He backs off again, allowing you to gain that confidence and not inevitably, gaining a respect of his opponents, which will definitely favour for more of Claggett's style. He can square up when he is fighting offensively, and perhaps he is forcing the aggression himself now because of the negative comments. Something like a Shakur Stevenson, who he's been compared to with the way that he moves, is showcase that you can fight a bit more entertainingly with that William Cepeda performance, but still box smartly and neatly and tidily and not get caught a tremendous amount. But Ortiz, I don't know if he has it in him to be able to decipher, to still be able to box well on the outside, but then also be able to come in with the attacking offense without just getting into a war. It's something which is, of course, very difficult, and not many fighters are able to do it really. Realistically, only some of the best are, and, maybe he has it in him, but I just haven't seen it so far in the highest of level of competition in which he's fought. Who do I think is going to win, though? I do think that Jamaine Ortiz is going to be able to win this one via unanimous decision. Yes, perhaps I have been slating him a little bit in who I think is going to win, but I still believe that the hand speed is going to cause him problems. I think even if he stands toe-to-toe with Claggett, if he puts him on the back foot, I think he might be stumbling a bit on the back foot, and then, if he can let his hands go and again, do it a little bit smarter, then I think he is going to have success. It might be a bit scrappy at times. Again, I don't think it's going to be the nicest of fights, the most technical performances. Perhaps Ortiz Jr. might get, deterred a bit if Claggett catches him with a nice shot and then goes on the back foot. But I do think that Ortiz is, in general, got the skill set to be able to beat him, especially with that speed. And then, like I say, can win by unanimous decision. Then, who we can go on to fight next? I think it's quite an open canvas, the super lightweight division in the contenders at the moment. I don't think there is too many clear standouts in or amongst him, so I think there is plenty of fights there to be made. I mean, an Adam Azim fight could be made. It seems like things are floating around there with him. Perhaps that could happen, or Sims Jr., he's coming off the loss to Duarte. Maybe Duarte or Sims Jr. perhaps could have a fight there with Jamaine Ortiz, or a fight in which I feel like definitely does make sense would be Sandor Martin. Of course, Sandor Martin fought Teofimo Lopez as well. Of course, they have that in common, and he's recently coming off his defeat to Puello, so that definitely could be a good fight there to be made as well, and it wouldn't surprise me if that's probably the most likely, in my opinion, to happen next. And so yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you didn't, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.